The Mike Wagner Show is powered by Sonic Web Studios.
Hi, this is Mia Mosinzia, also known as Mia No Time for Love. Check out my latest book, Missing, available on Amazon.
The Mike Wagner Show, also brought to you by Illuminatical, the think tank of the future. The Sweet Psalmist by Sabrina Wagner, available on Amazon. Highlighting the Book of David. And Heidi Tam Music, with her latest on HeidiTamMusic.com.
It's now time for the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartradio, YouTube, iTunes, Anchor FM, Radio Public, and themikewagnershow.com. Mike brings you great guests and interesting people from all across the globe. So sit back, relax, and enjoy another great episode of the Mike Wagner Show.
Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios, brought to you by our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Mosinzia Missing. The Mike Wagner Show is brought to you by Illuminatical, the think tank of the future. The Sweet Psalmist by Sabrina Wagner, based on the life of David, now available on Amazon. Also, Heidi Tam Music. Check out her latest at HeidiTamMusic.com. We're here with a terrific lady who's an award-winning author, professor at North Hall Chair of Black Studies at UC Santa Barbara. She was a recipient of UCberkeley Chancellor's past doctoral fellowship and a joint appointment in the School of Public Health Department and Sociology. Also won numerous awards as an author in publication diverse venues, and must read in such magazines like Essence, Ms. Magazine, and also NPR as well too. And also has a brand new book blending historical research, personal stories, and critical analysis of popular culture, leading to the demise of romantic partners. So lovers may want to listen up this one, emphasizing how racism and anti-feminist ideology has been the driving force as well. The book is called The End of Love, Racism, Sexism, and the Death of Romance. So it's not you, it's me. Takes on to a whole new level. Live, ladies and gentlemen, of Plus Studios in beautiful downtown Ventura, California. The amazing award-winning author and professor and North Hall Chair of Black Studies at UC Santa Barbara. And the book is called The End of Love, Racism, Sexism, and the Death of Romance. And also we'll find out how it is. Ladies and gentlemen, the multi-talented Sabrina Strings. Sabrina, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's great to have you on board as well, too. So you're an award-winning author and professor and North Hall Chair of Black Studies at UC Santa Barbara. You're a recipient of the UCberkeley Chancellor past doctoral fellowship with a joint appointment in the School of Public Health Department and Sociology, and also numerous awards as an author in publications in diverse venues. You have must-read in Essence, Ms. Magazine, NPR, and more. And you have a new book that's out basically blending historical research, personal stories, and critical analysis of popular culture, leading to the demise of romantic partnerships. The book is called The End of Love. And before getting all this, Sabrina, tell us how you first got started.
Well, I was in graduate school and I was regaling my friends with yet another example of a horrible dating experience that I had, because I had been used to passing these off as like comedic relief. And so once one of my friends said to me, "Are you okay?" when I was describing to her a particularly horrific event. And that led me to reflect on the fact that I had sort of been passing off my trauma as a joke, whereas I should instead be trying to think critically about why this was happening to me. So this book began as just me journaling about my experience, and it evolved into something bigger.
That's interesting. Talking about journaling in terms of dating, relationships, and everything like that. Is that a journal, like, past dates and everything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I was just writing down stories.
Oh,
I
wow.
wanted to be able to chronicle, exactly what was happening to me. And I was still trying to infuse a bit of humor, because that was one of the ways in which I was now able to process this, not just to tell a joke, but to try to get through this in a way that was slightly more lighthearted. But if you read the book, you'll notice that there are definitely some lighthearted and funny sections, but the book is pretty serious. We are witnessing the demise of romance. And I think there are a lot of people who are not prepared for it to go away.
Mm-hmm. And so I ask you too, you chronicle stories, journalism and everything. What is your all-time favorite story?
Well, I suppose one of the things that really blew me away was thinking about the evolution of Black music. Because if we take a look at Black music from the 40s through about the 80s, so much of it was expressing love and joy and the value of community. Yes.
Big band, Motown, and
All
going
of that.
into Boys and Men's, things like that. It's like, oh my goodness, this is like a flashback for me being in radio for a while. So
Yes, right? I mean, you can remember the caliber of music then. Around about the late 80s, we started to see a shift. And I want to identify NWA as one of the most important groups inaugurating this change. Now, NWA was raw, they were real, they were talking about things that were going on in their lives, and there's a value to that. But they were also deeply misogynistic. And some of the ways in which they were talking about Black women picked up on racial scientific ideas from the 19th century. And part of the problem is that in the beginning, the audience was largely Black. And people like me, as a young girl listening to this, at that time I would have been in single digit age, I was sort of like, oh, is this about me? I remember talking to elders, female elders, who would say things to me like, no, it's not about you. There's actually women who behave that way. So there was a real way in which this message, which again picks up on a lot of ideas from race science, was sanctioned because it was coming from Black men.
Oh, wow. That was something else coming from NWA. And what was their purpose? Like, were they out to make a statement? Were they trying to shock the world or something? Or was it just outright truth from NWA?
I think a lot of what NWA was doing was saying, no one's paying attention to what's happening to us in the ghetto. And we will not remain silent. We want you to know about the police brutality. We want you to know about the lack of opportunity. We want you to know about the absolute decimation of Black spaces, even though we're in the post-civil rights movement. There is such a tremendous value to that, but it was deeply sexist. And unfortunately, the women who they were targeting in their music were Black women. It was women in their communities. And so there was a way in which there was a wash over all Black women. And keeping in mind that this is in the aftermath of the Black is Beautiful movement, all Black women were now retainted with these racist ideas about our behavior. And my book is one way in which I'm trying to reckon with the complex nature of many Black women's relationships to rap music.
Mm-hmm. And I also thought about it too. It's like during that time you had Boys to Men. I think you had what was it, New Edition? I think there was like maybe a couple Boys to Men is in a sense is trying to save this whole love thing. Do you think they're still trying to keep it alive, or were they overpowered by NWA and all that?
NWA entered the scene and they made a tremendous splash. And so there were plenty of people who were still creating music about love, and even love within the Black community, love between Black people. But over time, because of the tremendous profits that were available to rap artists, we started to see that music about love started to go away. And right now, think about what you hear on the radio. How often do you hear songs sung by men that are about love and relationships? I think this almost never happens anymore.
It's like a lost art. Maybe think of Luther Vandross. I think we need to play more and more Lionel Richie. It's like, I mean, we got to play more and more, but next thing you know, they'd be turning the dial too. So
yeah, right. I mean, a lot of young people are into this, but partially it's what they've known their entire lives. I mean, they've grown up with this. So what we need to think about is the messaging. People don't know that romance itself started out as a story. There were also poems, there were lyric poems that were sung. And so we should not be surprised that a genre that actually began in verse, began with a song, could also end with a song.
Mm-hmm. And of course, this goes all the way back to, Sir Lancelot, just the very beginning of romance. Sir Lancelot, who knew he would start this whole thing?
Yeah, right. I mean, so in the 12th century, when the people were thinking about, what is love, there was like this whole interest now into re-articulating what relationships between men and women ought to be like ideally. And there was a Queen Eleanor of Aquitaine, who, by the way, mother of Richard the Lionheart, who I'm sure many in your audience have heard of. She was working with a poet, and they drafted this tale of Lancelot the Knight and the Cart. And what they wanted to show was that if a man was valorous and strong and brave, he could access a woman who was beautiful and pliant and significantly elite. And this became the rubric for a romance. Even during that time period, there was another writer by the name of Andreas Capianus, who was trying to detail, okay, well, who's eligible for a romance? He's like, if you're not at least middle class, don't even try it. And if you are a middle class man, you want to make sure that you aim for a woman above your station, right? You should social climb. You should gold dig, in fact, if you're a man looking for a romance.
That's interesting. We thought it was the woman that was doing the gold digging, not the man going after woman gold digging. That is interesting.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. The very first romances were all about men who were knights or middle class, as we might consider that today, shooting for women who were in the nobility.
That's really interesting. And do you think that pretty much set the boundaries of reality, or do you think the bar was set too high, or do you think it was all fantasy and everything like that? Do you think was that the reality could have been achievable, or was this like, no, the bar set too high? Sorry.
It was a fantasy, but it was a fantasy that many people bought into. There were so many men who wanted to envision themselves as being devoted to a queen. And in fact, it was not uncommon that there would be knights who would actually attempt to offer their service to a queen for the very purpose of having one of these chivalric romances. Because what people don't know is that early romances were not about marriage. They thought marriage was all about duty, and family and honor. No, no, no. A romance was about infidelity. It was about excitement. It was illicit.
Really? Oh my
Yeah. And that remained true for
Rapunzel, do
centuries.
not let down your hair, please. Romeo,
You know
go
what
after
you're gonna get.
somebody else. Forget Juliet. Juliet, get somebody else, please. It's not you, it's you, babe.
Absolutely. And if I'm being honest, I think people also don't want to acknowledge this, but there's a way in which when romance was tied to marriage, it killed the romance. Where's the mystique? Where's the excitement? All of the excitement was about the fact that they were doing something that was against what the church and the family had sanctioned.
That's really interesting. You said that too. And then you talk about, having that ideal Sir Lancelot. Made me think of the caveman one day, walk around with a club and all that. Sees a woman, bonk on the head, drag him. It's just like, you're my woman. There's romance.
Right. I mean, at that time, love stories were pretty short and sweet, or maybe not so sweet, but definitely short. But over time, people start to expect a lot of these sort of ritual elements to a man pursuing a woman. Obviously, people expect men to pursue women overwhelmingly. And it was these ritual elements that we now call courtship that, for the most part, were generated from these romantic tales.
And that's really interesting. You're saying all this stuff. And do you think, events like Valentine's Day, or say like with Sweetest Day, or remembering a certain date and all of that, do you think that puts more pressure on men to pursue women, or is this like, supposed to be more of a motivator?
If we think about Valentine's Day, mostly what we see are advertisements telling men what to buy their partners. We rarely see advertisements telling women to buy men something. So there's a real transactional expectation within Valentine's Day. It's like, okay, men, you buy a woman something so that a woman can put a negligee on and then pleasure you sexually. Said that baldly, it seems kind of troubling.
That certainly does as well, too. And there's more aspects to the book called The End of Love, Racism, Sexism, and the Death of Romance with Sabrina Strings. More on that. We got some interesting stories and questions. But first, you listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, time to give a special shout out to our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson-Zia. If you love fast-paced mysteries, you'll love Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Missing is fast-paced and intriguing with an unforgettable twist. Takes place in 4 countries, 2 strangers, 1 target, where truth is illusion and those you love be the first go missing. It's available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Missing by Mia Molson-Zia has garnered great reviews in Evil 11 George by Howard celebrities, including Johnny Cassidy, Forrest Riley, and many others. So grab your copy today for Goes Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon. Coming up, Missing 2 by Mia Molson-Zia, coming soon to Amazon. Watch out for double the fun and double the pleasure, and also double the trouble as well. Also, the Mike Wagner Show is brought to you by Illumnifical, the think tank of the future, bringing scientists and engineers together from all over the world, creating a method that constructs a renewable generator. This unique product operates on a closed-loop system, generating more energy that needs to function. This extra electricity can be used to run everything from homes, power grids, phones, and laptops. This power source is entirely renewable, highly scalable, and more importantly, self-regenerating. For more information, visit facebook.com/illumniptical. That's ELLUMENIPTICAL today. Also, Mike Wagner Show is brought to you by The Sweet Psalms by Serena Wagner, based on the life of King David, including Thursday exquisite pains and King David Psalms. The Sweet Psalmist gives a new perspective of David through the Psalms he wrote and his times as a shepherd when he started, his complicated, turbulent relationship with King Saul, his story of love, betrayal, repentance, and more. Check out The Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner on Amazon, keyword Sweet Psalmist Serena Wagner. Also, Mike Wagner Show is brought to you by High Time Music, featuring the smash hit Baby Come Back. New music coming soon. Check it out on hightimemusic.com. Also, take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. Check out the MikeWagnerShow.com and 40 podcast platforms, heard in 100 countries. And for great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com. Check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. T-shirts, pop sockets, throw pillows, tote bags, hoodies, makes great gifts 24/7. Go to Amazon.com. Check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. And if you want more information, you can email me to the Mike Wagner Show at gmail.com and let me know what you want to order. And for more great gift ideas and books, Amazon.com/MiaMolsonZia. Check it out today and support the Mike Wagner Show on Anchor FM, PayPal, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. We hear the amazing award-winning author and professor, North Hall Chair of Black Studies at UCsantabarbara, Sabrina Strings on the Mike Wagner Show, the book of The End of Love, Racism, Sexism, and the Death of Romance. And before we get back to it, you also had a previous book too called Fearing the Black Booty, or Black Body, should say, the racial origins of fat phobia. And tell us more about that book.
Well, that book was very different in its origin because it wasn't really my research question at the outset. It was my grandmother's. My grandmother had migrated from the Atlanta, Georgia area to Los Angeles in 1960. So she was part of the tail end of the second wave of the Great Migration, when Black people were finally leaving the South. Yeah. And one of the things that struck her immediately was that moving from picking cotton, which she did as a child, and moving from working as a domestic in a white family's home, which she also did as a young adult, she was now working in retail. She was working at Macy's. And for the first time, for the first time, she was working around a bunch of other white women. And she was blown away by the number of them that were on diets. And she was like, what's going on? So by the time I was in high school, she would constantly pull me into conversations. This was the mid-1990s. She'd be like, Sabrina, get in here. Now look at Victoria, who's a character in Young and the Restless. Victoria is dying to be thin. Why are these white women trying to be thin? Like, she could not wrap her mind around it because this was not a social value in the American South.
Boy, that's a head scratcher.
Right. So, as a 16-year-old, I didn't really care. I was like, I don't know, can I get a cupcake? I was at my grandmother's house. I was there for snacks.
I'm ready for a cupcake after hearing this story.
So, but ultimately, in the years since her passing, I thought more critically about how insightful that was. It's like, we have known for a very long time that dieting and slenderness seem to be deep priorities for white women, but no one tried to figure out, well, what can explain the racial component of this? And so my book was the research into that particular phenomenon.
That's really interesting. You talked about, how, Black women, were viewed that way too. As I think about the Renaissance as well too, that, the larger the woman, the more desirable she was. And there was a inclination that, the whiter the woman, it's like the more healthy she was and the more children she's able to bear. So it just made me think of that for some reason. It's like, why suddenly going from, desire back in the Renaissance, being like, 300 pounds and most desirable to all of a sudden, like going down to like, 150. And now the inclination is you got to love cats and don't desire children.
I mean, so much has changed
oh
over the period of time. Yeah.
I can't keep up with it. Sorry, folks.
No, but in each case, there was a role of race science, because what happened was that in the 18th century, after slavery had been going on for a couple of hundred years, that is the transatlantic slave trade, it started to be difficult to identify just using skin color who should be slave and who should be free. And so instead, they were like, you know what, there's a bunch of other qualities that separate us. It's not just skin color. We also think that Black people, people of African descent, are also quite sensuous. I mean, they love sex and they love food. And that's why we believe that Black people are prone to venereal diseases and they're prone to being corpulent. And so we have long heard about the stereotype of Black people being hypersexual, but there was also the stereotype of Black people being hyperoral, of being unable to control themselves in the face of food. And that contributed to the idea that fatness and Blackness were linked and that both should be considered below the character of white civilization.
And do you think that's kind of passed on? Do you think that's still going on today? Like, the Black race being hypersexual, hyper overdrive, love to eat and everything. Do you think that's still continuing, or because what's happening in social media, NWA and all that, do you think that has gone down a bit?
I think social media is making a positive impact. We are starting to see more people coming forward of a variety of different body sizes and saying, I get to live in the body that I have without making changes to please this society, right? If we need to change anything, we need to change the culture. But that doesn't mean that everyone's gotten the message. There's still plenty of fat phobia online, not to mention the fact that you can find a tremendous amount of fat phobia within the medical field itself. And so we have a long way to go. Oh, yes, absolutely. The medical establishment has been saying for a long time that we are experiencing a quote unquote obesity epidemic, even as they acknowledge the fact that the tool that they're using to identify people as quote unquote excessively fat is a deeply flawed tool, that being body mass index, which was, by the way, created by an astronomer who had no interest in health outcomes.
An astronomer, really? A body mass index and astronomer? I don't get it.
Right. Neither do I.
It blows my mind.
It makes
seriously.
no sense.
A body mass index by an astronomer. I don't get it.
Because he never intended it to be the body mass index. He labeled it the Quetelet index. It was a ratio of weight to height, and he was not doing it for any type of health reasons. He wanted to identify what was the quote unquote average man in the country of his origin, which was Belgium. And he did that. And it was medical researchers in the 1970s in the United States, a particular individual by the name of Ansel Keys, who said, oh, let's recover this tool and let's use it to determine who's too fat. And it's like, that's not why it was created. And that's not what it should be used for now. But he lobbied for more than a decade. And ultimately, he was a powerful enough doctor to get the tool to be used internationally.
Oh, my gosh, that just blows me away. I mean, Carl Sagan, I don't know if you should really question that one. It's like astronomers involved with this, like, I cannot fit this, to be honest with you. Maybe we should write a song about that. It's like astronomer love. You think it's like, do you think, looking to the stars for love, do you think that could take on a different meaning nowadays? And I mentioned about astronomers.
I mean, potentially, right? I mean, because people will source any type of old nonsense that will benefit their cause. And that's precisely what happened within the medical field between, let's say, the late 19th century and the mid 1970s.
And of course, I was thinking about it as well, too. Of course, you had your the romance you talked about depicted with Sir Lancelot, then it later colonized into the slavery trade as well, too. And of course, incorporating America and everything else. And at one point, do you think it's gotten to where it's like, romance, courtship, partnership, marriage, and getting down to what's called situationships? What point do you think it's come down to it?
Oh, yeah. Well, for people who don't know, a situationship is a commitment-free and absolutely confusing sexual entanglement you may be having with a person. So that perhaps you're having sex, perhaps you are seeing one another semi-regularly, but you don't know if you're in a relationship at all. That's a situationship. And those are on the rise. I was talking to my students about them. And as you might imagine, college students get pretty animated when people start asking them about situationships.
Oh, my gosh, I can imagine that.
And one of the things that they said that I thought was deeply poignant was that, what's a problem with situationships is that there's no reciprocity and there's no responsibility. So unlike a traditional relationship in which each partner is supposed to know their role and they're supposed to be telling one another about their feelings, in a situationship, typically people are hiding their feelings because they don't want to get hurt because they don't know what's going on. This is where we are with romance.
And do you think the situationship is going to be the new norm for romance, or is that going to, or is it going to be like a fad or anything like that? Just like with threesomes, foursomes, the free love movement back in the 60s and 70s. Do you think that's going to continue, or is that going to become a fad like we've had in the 60s, 70s, free love?
I think situationships will continue, but I don't think that they'll continue in perpetuity. What I would love to see is for people to take seriously the fact that it doesn't make sense that we are going through right now another gender and sexual revolution. Think about the proliferation of gender identities that we have right now. We don't just have men and women, we have cisgender men and women, we have transgender, we have non-binary, gender non-conforming, we have a bunch of new sexualities, right? Pansexual, demisexual, sapiosexual, all of these new ways of identifying. This won't fit neatly into the romantic ideal in which there is one man courting one woman. It doesn't work. So what we're going to see are more polyamorous relationships going forward.
And of course, talk about the asexual, pansexual, bisexual, and everything like that. And what genders do you see that's going to be upcoming in the future? I see alien, to be honest with you.
I mean, I think anything is possible, right? I think the idea is simply to embrace our diversity as human beings and to be accepting. As long as we're dealing with two consenting adults, we should not be very concerned about what people are doing sexually.
That's interesting. And of course, do you think how much is going to affect the traditional marriage? Do you think the marriages are going to pretty much go away permanently, no kids or anything like that? Or is that still going to continue, but kind of like a little shaky?
Well, I'll tell you what we're seeing. We're seeing that marriage has been declining since at least the 1980s. And so, I mean, because partially the sexual revolution of the 60s and 70s, people were embracing all new forms of connecting, and getting it on. And why not? Right? I mean, why should we be beholden to old bourgeois Christian ideals if they no longer suit who we are? So I think we're going to see more of that going forward, more new configurations, polyamory, consensual non-monogamy. These kinds of things are on the rise.
Boy, I've got a lot to learn on that one. So, and of course, don't forget our beloved friend Hugh Hefner from Playboy as well, too. Bring the whole Playboy thing, which has really turned everything on its head as an alternative to romance.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. That was one of the more devastating things for me to uncover in my research, quite honestly, because I thought, well, since I do a lot of research on women's magazines to see what women's attitudes were historically, what if I looked at men's magazines to see how men thought about marriage, especially in the aftermath of the sexual revolution or even during it? And Playboy was devastating to the extent that it was very clearly, unflinchingly saying to men, do not have a romance with a woman if she is a feminist or if she is a career woman.
Really? Don't have a relationship with a feminist or career woman?
Yes. They thought feminists were these harpies, shrill and annoying. They thought career women were competing with men for men's jobs, right? So only men are supposed to have these jobs. And so what they were advising is that men kind of go around and have free sex, be playboys, have fun, right? And don't settle down with a woman unless she is, well, a Guinevere type. Is she quiet? Is she docile? Is she good looking? Okay, as long as you can get yourself a traditional good girl, then you can settle down.
Guinevere, I haven't heard that term in years. I'm starting to learn this all over again. Thank you, Robin Hood.
Yes, Guinevere was actually the woman that Lancelot was in love with.
Was it? Okay,
she was married to King Arthur.
Somebody else, sorry.
I'm sure that it's probably the same Guinevere within that universe as well.
Mm-hmm. And do you think fairy tales also, affecting in terms of play of romance and everything else like that?
Yeah, it's hard to describe to people how romance was simply a story. It was a fiction that people wanted so desperately to make into reality that it did become reality. We should not in any way turn our nose up at these sort of like fairy tales or other kind of fictional stories and things that we find in pop culture as unreal. They are our reality if we want them to be. And with romance, people wanted it to be.
Mm-hmm. And of course, to get back to some of the stories you shared in your book, The End of Love, Racism, Sexism, and the Death of Romance. And you shared one story, your favorite one, maybe just a couple more stories. And what can people learn from them?
Well, let's see. I'll share another story. I was on my way to, I was a prospective undergraduate at UCberkeley. Actually, I was so excited to get in because I've been a nerd my whole life. And by the time I was 7 years old, I already knew I wanted to go to Berkeley. So when I got in at 17, it was like the fulfillment of my life's ambition. And I went to the prospective weekend. And while I was there, it was the Black Admit weekend. So all of the young Black students who were admitted were there trying to make connections. So we had the senior undergraduates and the senior high school students, and they were trying to orchestrate things for us to do. So one thing that they did was they put us in a fishbowl type situation. The girls were in the middle and the boys were on the outside. And we were asked, what has happened to love in the Black community? Imagine being asked that at 17 years old. And it's like, we didn't know, right? We're a bunch of girls. We don't know. We're kind of timid and shy, we're all nerds. And so then, our little group disbands and then they put the boys in the middle. And then they asked the boys, what has happened to love in the Black community? And they sort of like shirk that question and they say, I want to know why a girl gets mad when you want to pass her to the homie. These are 17-year-old boys valorizing group sex in the middle of a Black admit weekend, a recruitment weekend.
And we serious? Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Myself and the other Black girls present, we were blown away. Like, I remember trying to get, raising my hand and trying to get the attention of one of the seniors, like, hello, what's going on here? But unfortunately, the response of the seniors were, no, it's real. It's their experience. Let them talk. Of course, it's not their experience. They're 17 years old. So it was just another reminder that when people feel like they want to be sexist, and when it's Black women that they're being sexist against, even other Black women will often chime in to say, no, allow this to happen.
Oh my goodness. You wonder, where were the parents at that time?
Yeah, exactly. So actually, as it turns out, the conclusion of the story is that I went home and my parents were like so excited to hear about my experience. And I didn't want to tell them that. I just told them I don't want to go to Berkeley now. And I was certain that I was not going to go. My parents know that I can be very strong-willed. And they rallied their forces for weeks to try to change my mind, because my parents did not go to college. My mother had me when she was 17 years old. And so they are smart people who did not go to college. They understood the currency of a school like Berkeley. And ultimately, they were able to convince me that I could go there and get a great education and not have to worry about those kids.
And you also went to UCsantabarbara. And what was the factor in that one over UCberkeley?
So I did my degree at UCberkeley for my undergrad. I did my PhD at UC San Diego.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. And UC San Diego is an entirely different animal. You know, I don't want to rag on it too hard, but it had a reputation, especially when I was there, for being one of the least comfortable places for BIPOC students. I think it has evolved dramatically. And I don't want to toot my horn too much, but I was definitely one of the students who were activists on campus trying to help the university change. But yeah, the feeling at the different UC campuses can vary pretty widely.
You talk about change as well too. You want to advocate change, and how can you get people change the perspective of romance, and how to get back to romance? How can we help change it?
Well, this is the thing. I am not advocating that we go back to romance. Romance has very strict gender roles, as we've been talking about. Men need to be tough and rescuing women. Women need to be ready to be rescued and being docile and doing what a man says. I don't think that there are too many men who believe that they should be taking most of their paycheck home to their wives. And I don't think there's too many women who believe that they cannot have careers in order to please a man. We have moved beyond these gendered stereotypes. It's time that we simply let romance go and embrace a more holistic and more egalitarian way of loving.
And that is?
Well, that is, you meet people where they are and you're honest and you seek consent, because romantic courtship was always hierarchical. Men were driving it. Women were doing what they were told. Right? I don't think that there are too many men who expect to be carrying that burden, or women who expect to be quiet and pliant all the time.
That is rather interesting. And of course, more in the book, The End of Love, Racism, Sexism, and the Death of Romance with Sabrina Strings. We'll get more on that just 1 minute. You listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios, brought to you by official sponsor of The Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson Missing. Also brought to you by Eliminatical, the think tank of the future. The Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner, based on the life of David, now on Amazon. And Heidi Tam Music. Check out our latest at HeidiTamMusic.com. We'll be back with the multi-talented Sabrina Strings of The End of Love, Racism, Sexism, and the Death of Romance after this time up.
The Mike Wagner Show is powered by Sonic Web Studios. If you're looking to start or upgrade your online presence, visit www.sonicwebstudios.com for all of your online needs. Call 1-800-303-3960 or visit us online at www.sonicwebstudios.com to get started today. Mention The Mike Wagner Show and get 20% off your project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level.
Hi, I'm Burl Baer, legendary American author, and I'm here to tell you about Missing, the new mystery suspense novel by Mia Molson. It's really a good book. Very surprising. Never a metaphor I didn't like, especially in this book. Here you have a main character whose life has been filled with despair. His wife died in 9/11. His young daughter died of a rare disease. He's not a happy camper. What does he do for a living? He's a physical fitness trainer. When somebody hardly knows, somebody he's never met, he only has encountered them on an internet chat line, goes missing, this is his journey. He's going to go rescue them. This is his search for redemption, his search for his own personal promised land. He couldn't do anything about the death of his wife, the death of his child, but maybe he can rescue this woman he's never met. That is, if she exists. Missing by me and Mohsen Zia, international in scope, vastly entertaining, full of surprises. I suggest you get it in either paperback or an electronic edition for your Kindle. Missing by me and Mohsen Zia.
Baby, come back.
Heidi Tan has a new release, the remake of Player's Baby Come Back.
Spending all my nights, all my money going out of the town.
With special guest, international recording artist Nils on guitar. And now with her own twist on the classic comes Heidi Tan 2023.
Baby, come back. Any kind of fool could see.
She delivers the punch you'd expect from a seasoned pro with this arrangement of Baby Come Back. Destined to be a chart topper, Heidi Tan, Baby Come Back.
The Mike Wagner Show is brought to you by Illuminatical, the think tank of the future. Illuminatical, a human think tank that brings scientists and engineers together from all over the world, has created a method to construct a renewable generator with this in mind. This unique product operates on a closed-loop system that generates more energy internally than it needs to function. The extra electricity can be used to run everything from homes and power grids to phones and laptops. This power source is entirely renewable, highly scalable, and more importantly, self-regenerating. For more information, visit facebook.com/Illuminatical. That's facebook.com/ELLUMENIPTICAL today. The Mike Wagner Show is brought to you by Sabrina Wagner's book, The Sweet Psalmist, now available on Amazon. This book includes 30 exquisite paintings by well-known and unknown painters and King David's Psalms. The Sweet Psalmist gives us a new perspective on his life in this book. Through the Psalms he wrote, his time as a shepherd in the field is where the book starts, and it goes on to describe his complicated and turbulent relationship with King Saul as well as other events. It's a story of love, betrayal, repentance, and more. It also offers advice on approaching God and living a life that pleases him. Check out the book, The Sweet Psalmist by Sabrina Wagner, now available on Amazon. Keywords, Sweet Psalmist, Sabrina Wagner.
Hey, this is Ray Powers, and boy, are you in luck. Right place, right time. Tuned in to the Mike Wagner Show. You heard me.
We're back with author Sabrina Strings of The End of Love here on the Mike Wagner Show. And of course, you know, some things the end of love, something it continues, and some things it goes in a different direction. And where can we find your book and all your works at, Sabrina?
You can find it anywhere books are sold, but I would recommend that you check out bookshop.org, an independent bookseller.
All right, we'll certainly check that as well, too. And just a few more things, Sabrina. What else can we expect from you in 2024 and beyond going into 2025?
Oh, I'm always writing different things. I'm actually writing a follow-up to my first book, and I'm writing a follow-up to my second book. And I have
and the third, and the fourth, and the fifth, and we are loving it. Yes, love in a different way. Love 1, love 2, love 3, love 4, love 5, and maybe loving aliens, too.
But probably I should clarify, even though the title of the book is The End of Love, and it's worth stating that there are 3 women who wrote books with that title in the past 3 years. This is how serious the situation is, right? So even though the main title of the book is The End of Love, the book is not about the end of all forms of love, evidently. It's the end of the erotic passion or the infatuation that is romantic courtship, right? Romantic love was never meant to be enduring and for all time. It was always supposed to be a fling. It was always supposed to be an affair. It was always supposed to be a little bit dirty. So that is more or less gone. Instead, we can adopt more expansive ways, more inclusive ways of showing our love to people. And we also don't have to create a hierarchy in which we put sexual love as the most important love in our lives. We can have our love of our families, our love of our friends, our love of our community be equivalent to sexual love in our lives.
And what's your idea of love, and what is your ultimate love?
I think that for me, I want to have the kind of love that is not different between my partner, if I were to have one, and my children, if I were to ever have them, and my parents and my friends. I don't want to feel as if, okay, I love this person less than this person. How does that make sense? I want to love people equally. I want to love people for who they are, and I want to be generous. That is love.
And that is love indeed. And we love you for that, Sabrina. Like I said, that we love you right there.
Thank you so much. And I love you right back.
That does too. And of course, we're with author Sabrina Strings here on the Mike Wagner Show. And just a couple of things. Who do you consider biggest influence in your career?
Probably my grandmother, because she was wise and she was beloved.
Okay. And what's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
Don't believe what other people tell you about who you are. You are the author of your own destiny.
Mm-hmm. And you have the author of your book as well, too. We're here with author Sabrina Strings of The End of Love, Racism, Sexism, and the Death of Romance here on the Mike Wagner Show. Sabrina, very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely fantastic. Learned a lot. Looking forward to having you again soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Love to have you back. Wish you all best. And once again, what's your website? How do people contact you? Where can people purchase or check out your book?
You can find me on Instagram at Yogini Black. You can find me on Twitter, or X as it's now called, at SA Strings. And you can check out my website, sabrinastrings.com.
I will certainly check that out. Once again, Sabrina, very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely amazing. Looking forward to having you again soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. We'd love to have you back. We wish you all the best. And Sabrina, you definitely have a great future ahead of you.
Thank you so much. And I can't wait to come back on the show.
The Mike Wagner Show is powered by Sonic Web Studios. If you're looking to start or upgrade your online presence, visit www.sonicwebstudios.com for all of your online needs. Call 1-800-303-3960 or visit us online at www.sonicwebstudios.com to get started today. Mention the Mike Wagner Show and get 20% off your project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level.
Hi, I'm Burl Bear, legendary American author, and I'm here to tell you about Missing, the new mystery suspense novel by Mian Mosensia. It's really a good book. Very surprising. Never a metaphor I didn't like, especially in this book. Here you have a main character whose life has been filled with despair. His wife died in 9/11. His young daughter died of a rare disease. He's not a happy camper. What does he do for a living? He's a physical fitness trainer. When somebody hardly knows, somebody he's never met, he only has encountered them on an internet chat line, goes missing. This is his journey. He's going to go rescue them. This is his search for redemption, his search for his own personal promised land. He couldn't do anything about the death of his wife, the death of his child, but maybe he can rescue this woman he's never met. That is, if she exists. Missing by Mian Mosensia, international in scope, vastly entertaining, full of surprises. I suggest you get it, either paperback or an electronic edition for your Kindle. Missing by Mian Mosensia.
Baby, come back.
Heidi Tan has a new release, the remake of Player's Baby Come Back.
Spending all my nights, all my money going out of the town.
With special guest, international recording artist Nils on guitar. And now with her own twist on the classic comes Heidi Tan 2023.
Baby, come back. Any kind of fool could see.
She delivers the punch you'd expect from a seasoned pro with this arrangement of Baby Come Back. Destined to be a chart topper, Heidi Tan, Baby Come Back.
The Mike Wagner Show is brought to you by Illuminatical, the think tank of the future. Illuminatical, a human think tank that brings scientists and engineers together from all over the world, has created a method to construct a renewable generator with this in mind. This unique product operates on a closed-loop system that generates more energy internally than it needs to function. The extra electricity can be used to run everything from homes and power grids to phones and laptops. This power source is entirely renewable, highly scalable, and more importantly, self-regenerating. For more information, visit facebook.com/Illuminatical. That's facebook.com/ELLUMENIPTICAL today. The Mike Wagner Show is brought to you by Sabrina Wagner's book, The Sweet Psalmist, now available on Amazon. This book includes 30 exquisite paintings by well-known and unknown painters and King David Psalms. The Sweet Psalmist gives us a new perspective on his life in this book. Through the Psalms he wrote, his time as a shepherd in the field is where the book starts, and it goes on to describe his complicated and turbulent relationship with King Saul as well as other events. It's a story of love, betrayal, repentance, and more. It also offers advice on approaching God and living a life that pleases him. Check out the book, The Sweet Psalmist by Sabrina Wagner, now available on Amazon. Keywords, Sweet Psalmist, Sabrina Wagner.
Thanks for listening to The Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartradio, iTunes, YouTube, Anchor FM, Radio Public, and themikewagnershow.com. Please support our program with your donations at themikewagnershow.com. Join us again next time for another great episode of The Mike Wagner Show.